Serious. People who've had unexpected relationships with their SO ex-friend's parent. How did it happen and what came next? I had sex with one of my best friend's mom. It was Thanksgiving, and I was driving her back home, and she confessed that she didn't have sex in years since she was a widow. I told her that I didn't have sex in months since I was moving. We talked a bit more and we sort of flirted, and once we got to her house, she asked me to come inside and we did the deed. Edit. I accidentally put dead instead of deed at the very end. That's my mistake. I did not fuck a dead body. I am not into that shit. A friend of mine's mom basically hit on a number of us in the group, and sadly it just became kind of a matter of time before one of us caved, and it eventually happened. He saw it coming. I feel bad for him. Recently divorced, mid-30s, hot mom, and a group of 18-year-olds. It wasn't me who did it. I'm on mobile, so apologies for the formatting. I was at a friend's birthday party. My friend was in her mid-20s, I was 30. Her mom was in her early 50s. She and her mom took really good care of me after my father passed. They made sure I was eating and that I actually left the apartment every day, as I was prone to just sit around being a depressed, sad sack. Friend's mom and I used to get stoned together. So when we were at her daughter's birthday party at her mom's house, she called me to her room so we could smoke a joint. She didn't want to do it in front of everyone, and it definitely wasn't the first time we'd gotten a little high together. So it was somewhat familiar territory. Maybe it was the weed or the wine or both, but as we're smoking and chatting, I just leaned in and kissed her. To my surprise, she kissed me back, and we proceeded to make out like a couple of horny teenagers on the love seat in her bedroom. She stopped for a moment, looked at me and said, "Well, had I known you were interested, we could have done this a long time ago." We made out a little more, and I told her that we should stop because we're going to get caught. So we kissed and groped one another a little more and returned to the party. The next day, she stopped by my apartment to see how I was doing, which wasn't uncommon. That day was slightly different. She was always a very good-looking woman, but that day, she had more carefully applied makeup, some nice-looking earrings, and a blouse that showed off more cleavage than usual. I invited her in, and we were off to the races. We both had a great time, but I thought of my friend and said that we probably shouldn't do this again. She didn't really respond to it, and we continued to cuddle for a while. The next day, she called me and said that she thought she may have lost her earring on my bed or my couch, which I thought was BS. But it turns out that the earring was indeed in between the cushions of my couch. She came over to retrieve it, and we went at it again, and again, and again. This went on for months until I finally was moving out of state. It never happened again, we never spoke of it, and my friend never found out. Sadly, my friend's mom passed 5 years ago. I'd thought about telling her, but it just seemed like a bad idea. RIP Julie. You were smoking hot and just an all-around great woman. Edit. Wow, I had no idea this would get so much attention. Thanks for all the upvotes. When I was 20, I got accepted to university in Canada. I'm a French guy. And my mom put together a BBQ to celebrate it with my best friends, among which was my actual best friend, girl my age, who lived far so she would stay the night. My mom and dad were already getting divorced and sleeping in separate rooms back then, so there was no doubt they will ever get back to normalcy in terms of their relationship. After most people left, and I was drunking my way around talking about Canada with another friend, my now former best friend, and my dad made sure my mom went to bed and carried on drinking together. All I remember after is me trying to figure out where the hell my friend was in the morning as the guest room was empty. It took so much fighting denial to realize she had been sleeping with my dad all night. Mom was destroyed, so was I. They both denied it and said they just talked. I still cannot believe this happened, but with retrospective, my dad has been such a crap dad to his kids and wife, and that friend has not been nice to me either. Edit. Wow, I did not expect this story to go that far. Thank you for the awards and the heartwarming comments. First time sharing something that personal so publicly, but I am glad I did. I hooked up with my student's mom. I was teaching an after-school program, so I saw her almost every week at pickup. Sometimes her husband would pick up. Yes, she was married. And we would talk a lot to the point that we became friendly. Well, I was going through a divorce and happened to bring that up one time, and she very quickly gave me her phone number, put her hands on me. She was not being shy about it. Something like out of a movie. Next time I saw her, she asked me out to lunch, and I said sure. We met up, had lunch. She paid. And she went on to tell me about how her and her husband were not sexually involved with each other, and they were free to see other people. We went back to my place and the sex was wild. That was the only time we hooked up though, as I started dating someone shortly thereafter. Her kid was one of those, "I'll fuck your mom" Xbox Live kids, so I would just chuckle to myself when I saw him. I had sex with a good friend's mom. Looking back, it's really messed up. She had been working on me for months. I was only 18. I'm ashamed of it. Fortunately, the friend never found out. But as an adult, I now look back at it and realize that I was in over my head and she should have known better. Edit. Wow, everyone. I appreciate the sympathy. Let me just tell you a little more so you don't worry about me. Was I groomed? Maybe looking back, I was. But I was certainly no virgin. The reason I feel ashamed of it is because it was my friend's mom. I could have had her any time and she offered pretty often. So one night, I decided to take her up on it. This doesn't affect me today, probably never did in any deep way, except feeling like crap because it was a betrayal of my friend. But as an adult, I find her decisions disgusting. And as an adult, I realize that my 18-year-old self didn't know anything about life and rarely thought of anything beyond getting laid. I'm not hard on myself about it these days, but I was for several years. One of my first girlfriends in high school. Her mom used to seriously tell her that she should give me her virginity, often. Then mom started flirting with me. One day while at their house, mom grabbed me in the hallway and kissed me. After we split up, mom used to still call me every now and then. One time asked if I wanted to come over and hang out. I did, and mom got my virginity. Well, I was a horny guy, and my friend's mom was, well, available, really. I'm not proud of it, it just kind of happened sometimes, and every time I felt shame. I don't know, like I was betraying my friend's trust? Worst thing was, she was actually a friend of my mom too, so I kind of saw her on a regular basis. A friend at school's mom was pretty hot. She was relatively young compared to most of our moms, and his dad was quite a bit older and absolutely minted. When we were young teenagers, it was a bit of a running joke to give him shit about his hot mom, or how his dad was her sugar daddy. Fast forward to the end of 6th form, end of high school for US readers, when we were all 18 and he was having a party at his massive house to celebrate. Most people were outside getting drunk in the garden, but I'd had a bad few months, family stuff, so wasn't really feeling it. I decided to go and chill inside for a bit, and in the kitchen I found his mom just drinking wine and looking forlornly out the window. I asked if she was okay, and she pretty much unloaded her issues. She was miserable, she hated his dad. She'd settled down without having a life first, felt trapped because she couldn't afford to leave, loved her kids, etc. I opened up about my issues too with my family, and it actually felt good to talk to a relative stranger about it. I now realize I should have been seeing a therapist. Anyway, one thing led to another, and she started making out with me. I didn't stop her. She then led me upstairs, and the rest is history. On the one hand, it was pretty awesome. She was smoking hot, I was pretty inexperienced, and she really knew how to communicate in the bedroom. On the other hand, though, I knew I was betraying my friend and fucking up his parents' marriage, plus I could hear all my friends laughing and partying outside. A few months later, they got divorced, and I understand she got a bit shafted in the deal because she'd cheated on him. I don't know if that was me or she did it with someone else too. I am pretty ashamed about it, but I also realized she was using me too. I was never under any illusion we had some special connection or anything, but I can see she just wanted to fuck someone out of catharsis or frustration, and maybe, subconsciously, to force the problems in the marriage into the daylight so she could finally get out. TL, doctor. Friend's mom was hot but miserable in her marriage. Fucked 18-year-old me at a party to feel younger, and probably to sabotage her marriage. This reminds me of the mom of my cousin's wife. When her kids were younger, they used to bring home kids from school that had it really rough in their life. She would talk with them and help them. But one thing that was interesting she mentioned was that she was glad to have parents around who would initiate physical contact with them. She said she knew these youngsters needed physical contact since some of them had been feeling lonely or mistreated for a while, but she said she couldn't be the one giving it to them. Now reading these comments, I understand what she meant by that. I slept with my friend's mother. At a music fest, was very high on acid. We were all hanging out, me, my two friends who were dating, we'll call them David and Claire's mother. Claire doesn't feel too hot, So David takes her back to the campsite, and me and her mother are just left to the festival. We get some drinks in, do some dancing, one thing leads to another. And yeah. Afterwards, we just sort of chilled in my tent for a few hours before hitting the party tent, having a wee cuddle. Claire actually walked in on us after we had finished, and I was so high I didn't even really know what was happening. I just knew that I had done something very wrong. So the festival ends and we all go home, and of course the sensible thing to do would have been to try patch things up with Claire and never talk to her mother again. You will find, however, that I am not a sensible man and proceeded to not only see her again, but date her on and off for 4 years. I have so many stories about those 4 years. I slept with a childhood friend's dad while visiting my hometown. Long story short, he's bi and divorced, and I was browsing on a gay hookup app. It's a small countryside town, so the only things to do are ketamine, sex, or leave. He messages me, and he clearly doesn't recognize me because I don't look the same as I did a decade ago. I recognize him, and the entire time I'm thinking, this is really weird. But I'm bored, and he's relatively handsome and charming, as far as charming goes on Grindr LOL. So I figure, hey, why not? And hindsight is 20/20 because the sex was fun. But the entire time I'm thinking, this is my friend's dad. He has literally driven me to school before. Just left an overall odd feeling. My friend doesn't know, and it's going to stay that way because we don't really talk whatsoever now, and it'd be weird to just pop up like, your dad jackhammered my prostate, and it was kind of weird. A good friend of mine had this happen to her back in high school. She caught her, also high school-aged boyfriend, sexting her 40-something-year-old mother, and it led to her mom and her stepdad's divorce. All while she was 17 years old. She still has a strained relationship with her mom to this day. We are 25 now, so this happened almost 10 years ago. I don't think you can ever get over that kind of betrayal by your own mother. I believe she still has a good relationship with her, now ex, stepdad though. Her mom is now dating a man her age, but she will always be a predator in my eyes that seduces her daughter's boyfriend. So gross. My first serious girlfriend's mom used to text me every day after me and her daughter broke up. Just friendly stuff at first. Talking about music and other mutual interests, and I used her to keep tabs on what my ex was doing, because I was dumb 16-year-old kid. Eventually, it led to her telling me how much I reminded her of her high school boyfriend that killed himself, and she went on to tell me she'd lost her virginity to him, and how much she loved him. Then things took a turn. She started sending very sexual texts, which turned into nudes and phone sex and plans to hook up. Eventually, I ended up walking away from it all before anything really happened. I didn't think much of it back then, but looking back at it now, I was a 16-year-old heartbroken boy and she was a 40-year-old married woman. So that's pretty fucked up to think about now. Basically groomed and taken advantage of by someone I thought was my friend. Edit. This is actually my first time sharing this with anyone, so thank you for hearing my story. My brother's best friend from high school dated my mom in his 30s. She had my brother really young, when she was barely 15. So when his friend was in his 30s, she wasn't yet 50. I will always remember the night he found out. They fought, and my brother's friend left the house and got into his car. My brother followed him out and punched him in the head, through the driver's side window. He managed to go through the window and still connect with enough force to knock him out cold. I got super fucking drunk at the friend's mother's house, we all did really, but mainly me and the mum. But I'd come as my friend was going through a bit of a tough time, and it was supposed to be a nice surprise. My friend was going to her mum's for a nice night of merriment, and the mum told me I should come to cheer her up, which I agreed was a good idea. Everything started out fine, but as she and I got more drunk, we started kind of flirting. Something that had actually happened before when we were both drunk. Then, when it was time for everyone to go to bed, I snuck into her mum's room. My friend totally knew, a fact I wasn't aware of until a little while after, but her mum then had to drive me to the train station to go home the next day. What happened after is I, like a complete coward, never apologized, even after I found out my friend knew, and I lost that friend. They deleted me from social media and didn't speak to me for almost 2 years. We did recently reconcile. I sent a long text a couple of months back apologizing and letting my friend know how much I missed them. They then recently reached out because they found out I'm expecting my first baby. I'm very happy to be back in contact with this friend. Tip for everyone, don't sleep with your friend's parents. It's a dick move. But should that ever happen and you want to keep this friend a friend, own up, apologize, and then give them space. The truth is always better than a lie, and your honesty and apology will be appreciated. Friend's mom going through some tough times with her husband accidentally added one of our friends on Facebook. She started flirting with him, and eventually they fucked. After this kept going on for a couple of months, dude decided to tell his friend, son, about it at his house. The son cried, they threw hands at each other and everything was all right moments later. Don't really know what happened after that, lost contact with both of them. In my late 20s, I had a friend in a small mountain town in the western US. His mom gets separated, moves in with him. She's mildly flirtatious with me, no big deal. Not enough to raise any red flags. Job changes and I move to the city, 90 miles south. He comes on weekends to party a few times, normal stuff. Then he comes to party and brings her. At her request, we have a late-night fuckfest while he's passed out in the next room. Major violation of bro code by me, but she asked nicely. No surprise we weren't friends after that. My coworker that I slept with set me up with her mom. This is kind of an awkward one. I helped a coworker move. After all that was said and done, we had a drink and got to talking. She ended up blowing me and we hooked up to fuck a couple times after. We ended up just stopping and had almost no contact for about a year or so after. I made a satirical post on Facebook about the dating pool being, quote, a pond of acid full of robot piranha with lava for piss. And she messages me saying her mom was looking for a guy. I figure, okay, fuck it. Why not? I like cougars. I start talking to her mom, we sorta hit it off, and she asked me to come over. I had no idea my former coworker lived with her. So, awkward. After a couple hours of hanging out, her mom invites me into the bedroom. Still awkward. Next thing I know, I'm fucking her mom while she's out in the other room watching TV. It never stopped being awkward. There was even one time when the coworker knocked on the door and said something to the extent of, I want to turn with him when you're done, which her mom said something like, fuck you, find your own cock to suck. Did I mention this was really fucking awkward? That was sort of the defining moment where I knew I needed to just nope on out of there. Edit. I forgot to add the aftermath. I ended up getting a serious girlfriend, so it broke off. When we broke up, coworker and mom both tried to get in my pants shortly after. I didn't want to get into that mess again, so I ended up just ghosting them. I checked in on them both a couple years later. Coworker got married, mom moved out of state, but they're both doing well last I knew. My mom had a friend, and I was friends with her son. I had turned 16 in November and went to their house for a party over Christmas. I got drunk and passed out on the couch in the living room. I woke up to the house empty, apart from my friend's mom sucking my dick. That turned into a relationship for about 18 months. One afternoon, my mom is telling me how shit I am and how none of my friends can be trusted, so I asked her if she could trust all her friends. When she says yeah, I asked, even Margaret? And then the truth came out. Most of truths anyway. Never spoke to my friend again, but I did have to fight some drug dealer friends of his. Apparently, Margaret came round to my mom's house the day after and got a mouthful of abuse. I don't know what was said, but I'll guarantee that it was more about the breach of trust between her and my mom, and less about the sexual assault. My mom has never really forgiven me for it. BTW, I'm UK, and age of consent over here is 16. My best friend was dating this chick and having sex with her, and when she fell asleep, he would sex her mom up. Until one day his GF found out and the mom and daughter fought. It was almost like Jerry Springer. Interesting that the top 20 or so comments are younger male with older female, and one older male. Is that really that much more common? Or is it more that young men like to brag about it while a woman feels shame for hooking up with a dad? Good God, the US is just waking up and the amount of predatory moms from the UK already is disturbing. Edit. Thanks for my first award, stranger. My sister was talking this one kid I didn't really care for, and ended up working with him at the job I was managing at. There was a woman working in a different area. At that same job, I ended up having a one-night stand with her after we had been flirting a bit here and there. Come to find out later, that was the dude's mom. My sister would then use this as a comeback and say, well, your mom sucked off my bro. Was a weird time several years ago, all kind of moved away after a bit. Nothing much outside of that happened. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe for more stories like these. And of course, we'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below and share your experiences or opinions. See you in the next one.